Speaking of getting angry, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of getting angry, because if you speak about this, you're liable in the UK to get arrested, right? You're liable in the UK to get arrested if you talk about this. Before we move on to the stuff about Agent Epstein, right? That's coming up in the show as well, just after this. Recently, ladies and gentlemen, a person was arrested, a prominent person on X was arrested, right, for tweeting out a meme a couple of months ago that somebody found quote-unquote offensive or didn't like. I'll bring the meme up on screen for you now. It's a show that the quote-unquote British police doesn't operate in British interests or anything like that. They do not, in any conceivable way. They do not, in any conceivable way, operate in a British interest. They operate on behalf of foreign interests. And they cow to mob rule with the Antifa types and all the rest of it. So this person, you might know him, it's Pete North. Pete North goes by Northern Variant or FUD Daily on X. So working with Homeland, I'm not sure if he still works with Homeland, but he was working with Homeland on policy for a little while. And also has a fair bit of political commentary on X and stuff like that. And he posted, ladies and gentlemen, this meme to his X page. Now, it's the classic anti-Palestine meme, if you will. And it says, fuck Palestine, fuck Hamas, fuck Islam. Want to protest, fuck off to a Muslim country and protest. Now, free speech, any kind of free speech in the UK would dictate that he has a right to post this, and he has a right to not be arrested for it. He has a right to post this without government intervention. That was not the case last night, however, when at 10 p.m. last night, the police rocked up to his house, right, from about a couple of hours away to drag him to a police station to question him. Bear in mind, Pete has autism and a variation of Tourette's, which is very, very hard to manage. See if I can bring up the post in question where he actually talks about it. Where is it? Where is it? Because I got the video to go through, which I'll go over in a moment. Where's the actual post? I don't think I can't find it at the moment. Give me 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. He posted this in the comment section, which is more than enough to go through. So this is what Pete posted, and I'll bring it up on screen and we'll read it together now. So Pete posted this on X to give a little bit of context. So aside from the outrage of arresting me for a meme, there's something else I need to talk about. And this is actually one point in favor of the officer, I believe. So it says here, we'll skip a couple of lines down. He has a form of Tourette's, and Tourette's is not what most people think it is. It's on the autism spectrum. It manifests as tics, not necessarily swear words or even verbal tics, but sometimes I get stuck in a stammer loop in hyper-stressful situations. Most people aren't aware I have it because it's always worse when I'm at home, usually with my missus. The stimulation of the outside world seems to keep it at bay when I'm out and about. So, what happened immediately after the video, which we'll look at now, ladies and gentlemen, the police officer, when he's about to tweet the footage out or post the footage, snatched the phone out of his hand, which you can see here, grabbed his upper arm, and Pete, again, having this autism, having these conditions, not standing, being touched or anything like that, went into a full-blown Tourette seizure, got stuck in a loop, clearly saying something offensive. And the officer said that if you don't calm down, we will cuff you. It's not something he has control over, and they dragged him up by force. They put him in the back of a snatch van. Not something which they used to do. Not something which they used to do. But being put inside of this sealed cage in the back of the van, he thought he was verging on a heart attack because then he started having a claustrophobic attack. And he literally shouted down the road, shouted when they got a couple of miles down the road, because he really did think he was in trouble. As you can imagine, he says, I can only tolerate social engagements if I can leave at any time and I know where the exits are. To their credit, this is the next paragraph down, a couple paragraphs down. They spared me from a detention cell, instead holding me in the outdoor exercise compound at my request, basically in a large prison cell with a concrete floor and no roof. It's easy to see how autistic people die in police custody if they put me in a cell. I'm not 100% sure I've been able to write this. So this just goes to show how malicious the police can be. When people talk about the, banality of, evil, if you will. I don't want to use the word evil because somebody pointed out in my comments, We're all evil in some way by nature, right? So the banality of wickedness, if you will, right? The banality of wickedness and how nonchalant these officers were in detailing things that are just completely incongruent, complete lies, but not to mention it's just stamping out any form of freedom, right? For a meme that somebody found quote-unquote offensive. Now, who gets to dictate offense? Who gets to dictate offense, right? It's subjective. He was done for inciting racial hatred was the official reason given, as you'll see now, ladies and gentlemen. So here's the video of Pete in his home getting accosted by these officers here.
Yeah. In essence, you posted something on the internet that they didn't appreciate.
Really?
Go over to one. I'm not sure you have, but I'll explain a few steps. And
Yeah.
In terms of that, basically, our hate crime team reviewed it and said there are offences there we need to explore.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the time is 21:31 around arrest for what's referred to as Section 19.
Section 19?
I'll explain it in a second. You don't have to say anything, but how many depends you don't mention one question, something which relates around a court. Anything you do say, maybe give evidence. Basically, the Section 19 refers to spreading what we say like racial hatred. So you've posted something online that we believe is spreading racial hatred.
Twitter, Facebook?
I can't explain too much. It's just to give you the context beforehand.
Don't be put here an interview.
Because I appreciate you've never been arrested before, have you?
Yeah, once or twice.
Once or twice.
Frequent flyer.
So, put a little bit of a pause in here a moment. As you can see there, it was quote-unquote inciting racial hatred. So a hate crimes unit, which ask yourself, what free country has a hate crimes unit? As deemed that post, which I showed you before, was inciting racial hatred. That's what they said, right? Inciting racial hatred. The problem is, ladies and gentlemen, as you'll know, if you know anything about Islam, if you know anything about Muslims, if you know anything about how even racism works, is that there's nothing that Pete said that was racist. There's nothing that Pete said that was inherently disparaging to anybody because of their race. Because Islam is not a race. Islam is a religion. Muslim means religion, means religious adherent to Islam. It doesn't mean race. Because Muslims will tell you anybody who's an adherent to the religion can convert to it and be called a Muslim. It doesn't matter what your skin colour is. Right? You will still be viewed as the same if you adopt the same customs and adopt the same faith. Right? The only reason being that people associate Islam and quote-unquote Muslim with race because Muslims predominantly do come from Arabia and Middle East and Near East, Far East and so on, because they've massively expanded into a big empire. Colonialism and imperialism is fine when they do it. But because a lot of Muslims, simply by virtue of where they come from and where the religion originated 1400 years ago, come from areas of the world where the population is predominantly not white in skin colour, then people inherently make the association of Islam with race. But it's an incorrect association. So if I wanted to, don't want to obviously, but if I wanted to, I could convert to Islam and I would be a Muslim. If you was to insult me on the basis of that, it would not be being racist. You could argue it would be religiously intolerant, or the made-up term Islamophobia, God forbid. You can argue all these terms, but you cannot argue racist. So this is where you're seeing now, ladies and gentlemen, that the law is not only massively overbearing because of how it governs this way based on something that is purely subjective and is the whims of an individual that in just an instant can take away somebody's civil liberty like that, right? For something which they committed no crime, right? As far as most of the population be concerned, because most of the population is against hate speech laws. It's completely wrong. It's untrue. It's a lie. It is a law based on a lie. Pete North was arrested based on a lie. That should never be allowed to happen. That should never, ever be allowed to happen. That is really how you know that you are living in this disgusting tyranny, ladies and gentlemen. Because this guy, not to mention, he didn't say anything wrong, but the reason he was arrested, this incitement to racial hatred, is not even true. It's not even true. And that should anger everybody, because that could be you. That could be you. If you dare say something that is true, and you know it's true, just men are men and women are women, it's going to be you next, because that's classed as hate. Right? If you don't say trans women are women, i.e. men are women and can be women, if you don't agree to that, then you're guilty of a hate crime. Because you're intolerant, you bigot. And intolerance is a crime. Now you can see there that the love is love and the tolerant left are not so tolerant when they get control of the social power and the controls of political power, are they? They're not as tolerant as they preach. Somebody wrote something about a wolf in sheep's clothing. I wonder if that has anything to do with this. As you know, at the Fabian Society, the very logo of it is a wolf in sheep's clothing. This should never be allowed to happen. They should never be allowed to happen in a supposed civilized country like Britain. A supposed civilized country like Britain. It's been made massively uncivilized via mass immigration and totalitarian tyranny. Something we really need to do something about. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot afford to simply be silent and then stop thinking about this. This needs to be at the forefront of our mind all the time. Our very life depends on it. Our very survival and civilization depends on it. Our government is beyond comically evil. They make comic book supervillains blush. Right? We need to be... I say we need to be ready. I don't have any, big solutions as to what we can do. What you're supposed to do, you say the wrong thing, you get debanked. Basically, we the number one thing we have to fight at the moment is obviously digital ID, but again, how do we reform this? That's what I want to know. How do we reform this? And that's why one of the biggest things I talked about in Nadia Morad's story, ladies and gentlemen, is the mirror, the concept of the mirror. And that in order to make the positive changes in us, we need to understand where we are right now. And to do that, we need to be able to look in the mirror, look at ourselves, see what's wrong and put things right. It's a little bit like, if you're charting a course at sea, you need to be able to know exactly where you are before you can decide where you need to go in order to get to the destination that you want. Sad thing is that a lot of people are not willing now to hold that mirror up to themselves. They're not willing to hold that mirror up to themselves. To actually truly reflect on the things that they believe, because I think they're honestly scared as to what they may find, where the conclusions might lead them, because they know exactly where it will lead them. They know exactly where that wisdom will lead them. They just don't want to go there. But what you're seeing is, unless people do that, this is the kind of stuff you get. You get foreign gang child rapists roaming the streets, and you get people getting locked up. People with autism locked up for social media posts. It's not a country I want to live in. It's not a country I want to grow old in. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And the reason why I'm so hard on these things is because I know how much better our countries could be. I know how much better England could be for our English brothers. I know how much better Scotland could be for our Scottish brothers. I know how much better Ireland could be for our Irish brothers and sisters. And obviously all sisters here included in all of those as well, by the way. And obviously I know how much better Wales can be for my Welsh brothers and sisters. We can't tolerate this, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed that clip, then make sure to go on over to the Voice of the Valleys X page at VOT_Valleys on X. We're also on Instagram at Voice of the Valleys. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Godspeed.